Commander Zirek stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Sovereign Dawn, and stared at the view screen. Before him stretched the Dead Zone, a region of space that had swallowed ships for 300 years. No one knew what lay inside. No ship had ever returned to tell the story. The Vakari Dominion needed answers. Trade routes went around this vast emptiness, adding weeks to journeys. Exploration vessels disappeared without a trace. Even long-range probes went silent the moment they crossed the boundary. Some said it was a black hole cluster. Others whispered about ancient weapons left by extinct races. The High Council decided it was time to know the truth. Zirek commanded 12 warships, each one a masterpiece of Vakari engineering. His crew consisted of 5,000 warriors, scientists, and explorers. They carried enough firepower to conquer a small star system. The Dominion had given him the best of everything because this mission could not fail. "All ships report ready, Commander," his second officer announced. Her scales glinted blue under the bridge lights, a sign of her nervousness. Zirek understood. Every member of his crew knew the statistics. 47 expeditions had entered the Dead Zone over 3 centuries. None returned. "Take us in," Zirek ordered. "Standard formation. Sensors at maximum range." The fleet crossed the boundary together. Zirek watched his instruments carefully, waiting for something to happen. For several minutes, nothing did. Space looked the same on this side as it did outside. Stars dotted the darkness. His sensor showed normal readings, then the debris fields appeared. "Commander, I'm detecting wreckage," the sensor operator called out. "Multiple signatures. They're scattered across this entire sector." Zirek leaned forward. On his screen, hundreds of red dots appeared, each one marking destroyed ships or stations. Some of the signatures matched vessels that disappeared decades ago. Others looked even older. "Analysis," Zirek demanded. "The destruction patterns are consistent with weapons fire," the tactical officer reported. "High-energy plasma burns, kinetic impacts, radiation scarring. These ships were destroyed in combat, sir." Combat. That meant intelligence. That meant someone lived here, someone who killed every visitor. Zirek felt his blood run cold. The Dominion thought they might find a natural phenomenon or ancient ruins. Instead, they found evidence of an active hostile force. "Continue scanning. I want to know what we're facing." Over the next 2 hours, the fleet moved deeper into the zone. They found more debris, abandoned stations, and mines that had gone dark centuries ago. But they also found something unexpected. Active energy signatures. "Sir, I'm reading power generation," the sensor operator said, her voice rising with excitement. "Artificial gravity wells. Communication networks. There are inhabited worlds here." Zirek studied the data. The readings showed extensive infrastructure, stations, satellites, and planetary settlements. This wasn't a dead zone at all. It was occupied territory. Someone lived here, thrived here, and killed anyone who stumbled into their space. "Can you identify the species?" Zirek asked. "Negative, sir. The technology doesn't match any known civilization in the database. The power signatures are unusual. High efficiency, compact design. Whoever built this is advanced. Advanced enough to remain hidden from the 3 galactic powers for centuries. Advanced enough to destroy every ship that found them." Zirek felt a mix of curiosity and concern. He needed more information. "There," the tactical officer said, pointing at the screen. "Small installation on that asteroid. It appears to be a mining operation. Minimal defenses visible." Zirek examined the target. The station looked simple, almost primitive. A few structures, some equipment, a small fusion reactor. It seemed harmless. Perhaps they could capture it and learn about these mysterious inhabitants. Move the fleet toward the station. Prepare scanning teams. Every screen on the bridge went dark. Then they flickered back to life, showing a single message in perfect Vakari script. "Turn back. This is your only warning." Silence filled the bridge. Zirek stared at the message. Someone had penetrated their communication systems in seconds, bypassed their security, and delivered a threat. That level of technology far exceeded what the station's appearance suggested. "How did they do that?" Zirek asked. "I don't know, sir," his communications officer admitted. "Our systems are supposed to be impenetrable. They shouldn't even be able to detect our frequency, let alone hack our displays." "Trace the signal source." "It came from the station, sir. That little mining outpost just broke through our best encryption like it wasn't even there." Zirek considered his options. The smart choice would be to retreat, report these findings, and let the Dominion send a larger force. But his orders were clear: investigate and return with answers. One small station shouldn't pose a real threat to 12 warships. They're trying to scare us, Zirek said. Probably hoping we'll run away like the others. We won't. Move 3 cruisers into position around the station. Demand their surrender. If they refuse, disable their communications and prepare boarding teams. His second officer looked uncertain. Sir, perhaps we should exercise caution. This warning could be serious. Noted, Zirek replied. But we didn't come all this way to turn back at the first sign of resistance. These people, whoever they are, have been hiding in our galaxy. They've killed our explorers. It's time they answered for those crimes. Proceed with the operation. The 3 Vakari cruisers moved toward the asteroid, their weapons charging. The mining station sat silent, waiting. No more messages came through. No defenses activated. Zirek watched and wondered what he was really facing. In a few minutes he would have his answer. He had no idea that those would be the last peaceful minutes his fleet would ever know. The first Vakari cruiser moved within weapons range of the mining station. Commander Zirek watched from his flagship, confident that this small outpost would surrender once they saw his firepower. The cruiser's commander opened a channel and broadcast a demand for immediate compliance. The response came in the form of violence. The asteroid exploded with light, not from conventional weapons or plasma cannons, but from kinetic accelerators that fired solid projectiles at a fraction of light speed. The rounds hit the Vakari cruiser before its shields could fully engage. Metal tore like paper. The ship's hull buckled and split. Atmosphere vented into space in brilliant streams of frozen air. Evasive maneuvers. Someone shouted on the bridge, but it was too late for the cruiser. A second volley struck its reactor core. The ship died in a flash of nuclear fire. Zirek stared in shock. 500 crew members gone in less than 10 seconds. The small mining station that looked so primitive had just destroyed a Vakari warship with contemptuous ease. All ships, return fire, Zirek commanded. Destroy that station. The remaining 11 warships opened up with everything they had. Plasma batteries lit up the void. Missiles streaked toward the asteroid. Energy beams capable of melting mountains focused on the small installation. The station disappeared in a storm of fire and destruction. When the bombardment cleared, nothing remained but glowing debris. Zirek felt a moment of satisfaction mixed with his anger. They had paid a heavy price, but at least the threat was eliminated. Send boarding teams to the wreckage, Zirek ordered. I want to know what we just fought. Salvage their technology if possible. The teams went in wearing full combat armor, expecting resistance. They found none. The station was gone, reduced to rubble and molten metal. But as they searched through the ruins, they made discoveries that chilled Zirek to his core. Commander, you need to see this, the lead investigator reported. We found manufacturing facilities. This wasn't just a mining station. They were building weapons here. Lots of weapons. The images came through to Zirek's screen. Deep inside the asteroid, protected from casual scans, were factories. Assembly lines for those kinetic accelerators. Storage facilities for ammunition. The station could have armed a fleet. There's more, sir, the investigator continued. We found data cores. Encrypted beyond anything I've seen. We can't crack them, but we can read the headers. Sir, this station was one of thousands. There are star charts showing installations throughout this entire sector. We didn't find an outpost. We found one small piece of a massive defensive network. Zirek felt his confidence drain away. One station had destroyed his cruiser. If there were thousands of these installations, his fleet was in serious danger. He needed more information. Can you read anything from those data cores? Zirek asked. Some fragments, sir. Enough to get language samples. Running them through our translator now. The species calls themselves humans. This region is marked as human space on their charts. And, sir, there are records here. Records of every ship that entered this zone for the past 300 years. What happened to them? Destroyed, sir. Every single one. The humans have been watching the galactic powers for generations. They've been cataloging our ships, our weapons, our languages. They know about the Dominion. They know about the other empires. They've been studying us while staying hidden. Zirek's mind raced. A species advanced enough to hide from galactic powers for centuries. Advanced enough to build vast defensive networks. Advanced enough to destroy every expedition sent into their territory. This wasn't a primitive species to be conquered. This was a threat. Recall all boarding teams immediately, Zirek ordered. Prepare the fleet to withdraw. We need to report this to the High Council. Sir, I'm detecting new contacts, his sensor operator called out. Multiple ships appearing on sensors. They're surrounding us. Zirek looked at his tactical display. Ships were appearing from nowhere, dozens of them, forming a sphere around his fleet. They hadn't jumped in from faster-than-light travel. They had been there all along, invisible, waiting. "How long have they been there?" Zirek demanded. "Unknown, sir. Our sensors never detected them until they wanted to be seen. They have stealth technology beyond our capabilities." The human fleet held position, not attacking, but clearly ready to do so. Zirek counted 40 vessels, each one roughly the same size as his cruisers. They didn't look particularly impressive, but he had already learned not to judge these humans by appearances. A communication request came through. Zirek accepted it, and a human appeared on his screen. Female, by the look of it, wearing a simple uniform. She looked remarkably similar to Vakari in basic structure. 2 eyes, 1 mouth, but her skin was darker and she had hair instead of scales. "I am Captain Chen of the Human Defense Fleet," she said, speaking perfect Vakari. "Welcome to the graveyard, Commander Zirek." "You know my name," Zirek said carefully. "We know everything about you. Your name, your rank, your service record. We know about the Vakari Dominion, its territory, its military strength, its political structure. We've been watching your people for 140 years. We've been watching all the galactic powers. Why?" Zirek asked. "Why hide? Why kill everyone who finds you?" Captain Chen's expression hardened. "Because we learned what your empires do to newcomers. Your Dominion enslaves weaker species. The other powers aren't much better. When humanity discovered faster-than-light travel, we saw a galaxy full of predators. We made a choice. We would hide, build up our strength, and make sure no alien power could ever threaten Earth." "We could have been allies," Zirek said. "No," Chen replied. "We studied your history. We saw how you treat allies, how you use them until they're no longer useful, then absorb them into your empire. We decided we didn't want any part of that. So we created this dead zone. Every ship that entered was captured or destroyed. Every piece of technology was studied. Every language was learned. We built our civilization in secret behind walls you couldn't penetrate. You can't stay hidden forever," Zirek said. "We don't plan to," Chen answered. "We're strong enough now that it doesn't matter if you know we're here. Your fleet is surrounded. Your weapons are targeted. You have 2 choices, Commander. Your ships can die here, adding to the graveyard, or we let 1 vessel return home with a message." Zirek knew he had no real choice. His fleet couldn't fight 40 ships with superior technology. "What message?" "Simple," Chen said. "Stay out of human space or face extinction. This is your only warning. The next fleet that crosses our border won't get the option to retreat." Zirek swallowed his pride. "I accept. We'll leave. Your flagship may go," Chen said. "The rest stay here. And Commander, one more thing. We're installing a tracking beacon on your ship. It will let us know where the Vakari homeworld is. Consider it insurance. If you attack us, we'll know exactly where to strike back." The transmission ended. Zirek watched as human boarding teams transferred to his other ships. His crews didn't resist. They couldn't. Within an hour, only his flagship remained operational. The other 10 vessels were disabled, their crews taken prisoner. Zirek gave the order to retreat, his ship limping toward the boundary of human space. Behind him, he left 10 warships and thousands of crew members. Ahead of him lay the impossible task of explaining to the High Council that the Dominion had just discovered an enemy they might not be able to defeat. The journey back to the Vakari homeworld took 3 weeks. Commander Zirek spent every day of that journey reviewing the data his ship had collected. He studied sensor logs, analyzed the human weapons, and tried to understand what his people were facing. The more he learned, the more worried he became. The humans had built an entire civilization in secret. Their technology was different from anything in the known galaxy, not better in every way, but specialized for defense and stealth. They had learned from watching the galactic powers, taking the best ideas from each empire while avoiding their weaknesses. When Zirek's damaged flagship finally reached the Dominion capital, he was summoned immediately to the High Council. He stood in the Grand Chamber where the most powerful Vakari in the Empire made their decisions. 12 council members sat on elevated platforms looking down at him with expressions ranging from curiosity to anger. "Commander Zirek," the chief counselor began, her voice cold. "You departed with 12 warships. You return with 1 badly damaged and without most of your crew. Explain." Zirek told them everything. He described the dead zone, the hidden human civilization, the advanced technology, and the warning he had been given. He presented all the data his ship had gathered. He recommended extreme caution in dealing with this new threat. The council listened in silence. When he finished, they began asking questions. Most of those questions revealed that they didn't understand the danger. "These humans let you go," one counselor said. "That shows weakness. A strong enemy would have destroyed your entire fleet." "They let me go so I could deliver their warning," Zirek explained. "They wanted you to know they exist and that they will defend their territory." "They're not weak. They're confident." "Confident or arrogant?" another counselor asked. "They hide in a corner of space while we rule star systems. They have 40 ships, maybe a few hundred. We have thousands. What makes you think they're a real threat?" Zirek felt frustration building. "Because they've been preparing for this for centuries. Every ship that entered their space was destroyed. They studied our technology, learned our languages, and built defenses specifically designed to counter our tactics. This isn't a primitive species we can easily conquer." The chief counselor raised her hand for silence. "We appreciate your report, Commander. However, the council sees this situation differently. The humans attacked Dominion vessels without provocation. They destroyed 11 warships and took our crews prisoner. This is an act of war." "They gave us a warning before they attacked," Zirek protested. "We ignored it." "A warning means nothing," the chief counselor replied. "They entered our territory by hiding in what should have been neutral space. They killed our explorers over centuries. And now they threaten us? No, the Dominion does not back down from threats. We will assemble a war fleet and deal with these humans decisively." Zirek couldn't believe what he was hearing. "You're planning to invade human space? After what I just told you?" "We're planning to eliminate a threat," the chief counselor corrected. "You encountered one small defensive fleet. 40 ships. We will send thousands. We will overwhelm them with pure numbers and firepower. The humans cannot possibly stand against the full might of the Dominion." "And what if you're wrong?" Zirek asked. "What if they have more ships than we saw? What if their defenses are stronger than we think? Then we will adapt," the chief counselor said dismissively. "Commander, you are relieved of duty pending an investigation into the loss of your fleet. You are not to speak publicly about this matter. The council will handle the human problem." Zirek left the chamber feeling hollow. They hadn't listened. They saw only an opportunity for conquest, a chance to seize advanced technology and eliminate a potential rival. They didn't understand that the humans weren't hiding because they were weak. They were hiding because they were dangerous. Over the next month, Zirek watched as the Dominion mobilized for war. Shipyards worked around the clock. Crews were recalled from leave. Weapons were stockpiled. The war fleet grew larger every day. But the Dominion didn't keep their plans secret. Word spread to the other galactic powers. The Kryn Empire and the Zellian Confederation both sent representatives to the Dominion capital. Zirek watched the news feeds as the three powers negotiated. The humans represented a threat to all of them, they decided. A hidden civilization with advanced technology could disrupt the balance of power. Better to eliminate the problem together. Within 2 months, the largest military fleet in galactic history began to assemble. The Dominion contributed 3,000 warships. The Kryn added 2,000. The Zellian provided another 1,000. 6,000 ships total, with crews numbering in the millions. Enough firepower to sterilize a dozen worlds. Zirek was not invited to join the fleet. He remained on the homeworld, officially under investigation but really just sidelined. The council appointed Admiral Kresh to command the operation. Kresh was famous for his aggressive tactics and his hatred of anything that challenged Dominion authority. He was exactly the wrong choice for this mission, but Zirek couldn't stop what was coming. He could only watch as the fleet prepared to depart. He spent his time reviewing the data from human space again and again, looking for something everyone else had missed. That's when he found it. Hidden in the sensor logs, buried in routine scans, was evidence that changed everything. The human installations his fleet had detected. Those thousands of defensive stations all shared a common design pattern. They were modular, scalable, and most importantly, they were automated. The humans didn't need large crews to operate their defenses. They used artificial intelligence and remote control. That meant they could build many more installations than a traditional empire could manage. The 40 ships that surrounded his fleet might have been every manned vessel the humans had, but the defensive network could include thousands or even millions of automated platforms. Zirek tried to send his findings to Admiral Kresh. The message was blocked. The council didn't want dissenting opinions confusing their commanders. They wanted confidence and aggression, not caution and analysis. 3 months after Zirek's return, the combined fleet departed for human space. Zirek watched the news coverage as 6,000 warships jumped to faster-than-light speeds, heading for the dead zone. Reporters called it the greatest military operation in galactic history. Politicians gave speeches about unity and strength. Citizens celebrated the coming victory. Zirek felt only dread. He knew what those 6,000 ships were really flying into. Not a quick victory over a primitive species, but a trap that had been centuries in the making. The humans had been waiting for this moment, preparing for it, hoping it would never come but ready when it did. He thought about Captain Chen's words. Stay out of human space or face extinction. It hadn't been a bluff or an empty threat. It had been a simple statement of fact. The humans had built their entire civilization around one goal, making sure no alien power could ever threaten Earth. The fleet was going to learn what that meant. Zirek just hoped some of them would survive to tell the story. He pulled up the sensor data one more time, studying the patterns, trying to estimate how many defensive installations the humans might have deployed. The numbers he calculated made his blood run cold. The Dominion thought they were sending overwhelming force. Zirek feared they were sending just enough victims to show the humans what they were truly capable of. And after the humans finished with the fleet, after they demonstrated their strength, what would they do next? Captain Chen had installed a tracking beacon on his ship. The humans knew exactly where the Vakari homeworld was. They knew where all the major worlds of all 3 empires were located. If the humans decided that the galaxy's powers were too dangerous to leave alone, they had the targeting data they needed. Zirek stared at the stars and wondered if his species had just made the biggest mistake in its history. In trying to conquer a hidden enemy, they might have awakened something far worse, something that had been content to remain isolated but would fight with terrifying efficiency when threatened. The fleet wouldn't reach human space for another week. Zirek counted down the days, dreading the news that would eventually come. He had seen what one small human station could do. Soon the entire galaxy would learn what an entire human civilization was capable of when pushed to war. The combined fleet of 6,000 warships entered human space with absolute confidence. Admiral Kresh stood on the bridge of his command dreadnought, surrounded by holographic displays showing the positions of every vessel under his command. The Vakari, Kryn, and Zelian forces formed a wall of metal and firepower stretching across light years. All ships report ready, Admiral, his communications officer announced. Kresh smiled, showing his pointed teeth. Today we teach these hiding humans a lesson about challenging established powers. Begin the advance. Weapons free. Destroy anything that resists. The fleet moved forward in waves, thousands of ships jumping deeper into human territory. Their sensors swept the region, searching for targets. Within minutes, they found them. Hundreds of installations appeared on the displays, just as Commander Zirek had reported. Stations, satellites, and defensive platforms scattered throughout the sector. Target all installations, Kresh ordered. Fire at will. The fleet opened fire. Thousands of weapons lit up space. Missiles and energy beams converging on the human defenses. Kresh watched with satisfaction as the first targets exploded. This would be easy, he thought. These humans had built an impressive defensive network, but numbers would tell the story. 6,000 ships against a few hundred stations was no contest. Then the trap sprang shut. The fleet's faster-than-light drives shut down simultaneously. Every ship dropped out of FTL at the same instant, scattered across a huge volume of space. Kresh's smile vanished as warning lights flooded his displays. What happened? He demanded. Why did we stop? Unknown, sir, the navigation officer replied, panic in her voice. Something is interfering with our FTL fields. There are gravitational anomalies everywhere. We're caught in some kind of trap. Impossible. Our drives are, Admiral, detecting massive weapons fire. The tactical officer shouted. Multiple contacts. Thousands of contacts. The human response made their earlier demonstration look gentle. Defensive platforms that had seemed dormant suddenly activated. Stealth drones appeared from nowhere, swarming like insects. Railguns fired solid projectiles at impossible speeds. Missile pods that looked like asteroids opened up and unleashed their payloads. Energy weapons sliced through shields that had taken decades to develop. But the worst were the kinetic kill vehicles. Small drones accelerating to a significant fraction of light speed, each one carrying enough momentum to punch through a warship's hull like it was made of paper. They came in waves, too fast to dodge, too numerous to shoot down. Kresh watched in horror as his tactical display lit up with red markers. Ships dying. Dozens at first, then hundreds. The fleet tried to fight back, but the humans had chosen their battlefield perfectly. The gravitational anomalies prevented coordinated movement. Ships were isolated, unable to support each other, picked off one by one. "Regroup," Kresh ordered. "All ships form defensive formations. Focus fire on the nearest threats." The fleet tried to comply, but the humans had other surprises. The defensive platforms weren't stationary. They moved, repositioning constantly, never giving the fleet a stable target. And they were coordinated in a way that suggested a single controlling intelligence, striking at weak points and exploiting every mistake. Then the human warships arrived. Not 40 ships this time, but hundreds. They came from every direction, their stealth fields dropping just long enough to launch attacks before disappearing again. These weren't the same vessels that had surrounded Commander Zirek's fleet. These were dedicated warships, bigger, more heavily armed, and crewed by people who had trained for this exact scenario. The human ships used tactics the galactic powers had never encountered. They didn't form neat battle lines or follow predictable patterns. They struck like predators, hitting hard and fast, then vanishing before the return fire could connect. They targeted engines first, crippling ships so they couldn't escape. Then they methodically destroyed weapon systems, life support, anything that kept the vessel operational. "Sir, we've lost over 1,000 ships," the tactical officer reported. "Casualties are catastrophic." "How long has the battle been going?" Kresh asked. 18 minutes, sir. 18 minutes. 1,000 ships destroyed in 18 minutes. Kresh felt his confidence crumble. This wasn't a battle. It was a slaughter. The humans had been ready for this. They had built their entire defensive strategy around the assumption that someday, someone would be foolish enough to invade with overwhelming numbers. "Break off the attack," Kresh ordered. "All ships retreat to the boundary. We need to regroup and, sir, the gravitational anomalies are preventing FTL jumps. We can't retreat." Kresh stared at the display. They were trapped. The humans had seeded this entire region with devices that prevented faster-than-light travel. The fleet was stuck here, unable to escape, while the human defenses tore them apart piece by piece. "Then we push forward," Kresh decided. "If we can't retreat, we advance. Target the human homeworld. If we can threaten Earth, they'll have to negotiate. Sir, we don't know where Earth is. It's not in any of our databases." Of course it wasn't. The humans had been careful to keep their homeworld's location secret. Kresh realized with growing dread that the humans had thought of everything. They had prepared for every contingency, planned for every possible attack. This wasn't just defense. This was a carefully designed killing field, and he had led his entire fleet directly into it. The battle continued for 6 more hours. The combined fleet fought bravely, destroying hundreds of human platforms and dozens of their ships. But for every human installation destroyed, 3 more appeared. For every human ship killed, 5 more attacked. The defenders fought with a coordination and efficiency that spoke of centuries of planning. Worse, the humans escalated. They began using weapons the galactic powers had only theorized about. Antimatter warheads that annihilated entire ship formations. Directed energy beams that could slice through multiple vessels in one shot. Exotic weapons that seemed to violate known physics, creating spatial distortions that crushed ships like tin cans. By the time the fighting paused, the combined fleet had been reduced to less than half its original strength. 3,000 ships destroyed, millions dead, and the humans showed no signs of running out of weapons or ammunition. That's when the transmission came. It appeared simultaneously on every surviving ship, broadcast on all frequencies, impossible to block. A human face appeared on the screens, male this time, older, with gray hair and cold eyes. "I am General Zhao, commander of Earth's Defense Forces," he said, speaking in multiple languages simultaneously so every species could understand. "Your invasion has failed. You came to our territory with overwhelming force, seeking to conquer or destroy us. Instead, you have learned what happens when you threaten humanity." Kresh wanted to respond, to negotiate, but his communication systems were locked. He could only listen. "We did not want this war," General Zhao continued. "We gave you warnings. We offered you the chance to leave us alone. You ignored those chances. You believed your numbers would guarantee victory. You were wrong." The general's expression hardened. For centuries, we prepared for this moment. We built defenses. We developed weapons. We studied your tactics and found your weaknesses. We did this because we learned what your empires do to species that cannot defend themselves. We refused to be victims. Now you face a choice, Zhao said. You can continue fighting. Your remaining ships will be destroyed, and your crews will die, or you can listen to our terms. 1 minute to decide. Kresh looked at his tactical display. His fleet was scattered, damaged, demoralized. The humans were still strong. Their defenses barely dented despite the massive battle. He knew what his superiors would want him to do. Keep fighting, never surrender. Die with honor rather than accept defeat. But Kresh also knew that dying here wouldn't save the Dominion. It would just mean the loss of 3,000 more ships and millions more lives. Someone needed to survive to warn the homeworlds about what they were really facing. We'll listen, Kresh transmitted, his voice bitter with defeat. General Zhao nodded. Smart choice. Here are our terms. Your surviving ships will be allowed to leave human space. But before you go, you will witness what happens if you ever return. We are about to demonstrate something we hoped we would never need to use. Watch carefully, remember what you see, and make sure your governments understand the message. The transmission ended. Kresh looked at his sensor operator. What's happening? Sir, I'm detecting power surges across the entire human defensive network. They're charging something. Energy levels are off the scale. Whatever they're preparing, it's massive. Kresh watched his displays and wondered what new horror the humans were about to reveal. He had thought the demonstration was over. He was wrong. The humans had one more lesson to teach, and he suspected it would be the one that really mattered. Admiral Kresh watched his sensors as energy readings across human space climbed to impossible levels. Every human installation, every platform, every hidden station began channeling power to something. His instruments couldn't identify the targets, but the scale was terrifying. Whatever the humans were preparing, it involved more energy than his entire fleet could generate. Sir, receiving another transmission, his communications officer said. General Zhao's face appeared again on every screen. Behind him, Kresh could see a command center filled with humans working at stations, calm and efficient even after hours of brutal combat. 300 years ago, humanity discovered faster-than-light travel, Zhao began. We were excited. We thought we would find friends among the stars, trading partners, allies, and exploring the universe. We were naive. The general's expression grew darker. Our first scout ships found your empires, the Vakari Dominion, enslaving species that couldn't fight back, the Kryn Empire, conquering worlds for resources, the Zelian Confederation, not quite as brutal but still expanding through force. We saw a galaxy where strength was the only currency that mattered and where newcomers were seen as either threats or prey. We made a decision then, Zhao continued. We would not be prey. We would build our strength in secret, behind a defensive perimeter no one could penetrate. We would study you, learn from you, and prepare for the day you discovered us. We hoped that day would never come. We hoped we could remain isolated until the galactic powers evolved beyond their violent ways. Kresh felt a chill run through him. The humans had been watching for 300 years, learning, planning, building. The Dominion was only 200 years old. The humans had been preparing for this war longer than his entire civilization had existed as a unified power. You forced our hand, Zhao said. Commander Zirek's fleet received a warning. We let him go so he could deliver a message. We hoped you would listen. Instead, you assembled this invasion force. You brought 6,000 ships to destroy us. You believed your numbers made victory inevitable. You were wrong, the general stated flatly. We didn't build defenses just around our territory. Over the past 3 centuries, our scout ships explored the entire galaxy. We cataloged every world, every station, every major installation belonging to your empires, and we placed weapons near all of them. Kresh felt his blood run cold. What? As if answering his question, holographic displays appeared in front of every ship in the fleet. They showed star maps marking the Vakari homeworld, the Kryn capital, the Zelian command stations, and dozens of other critical locations. Near each location, red markers indicated human weapons platforms hidden and waiting. These are automated systems, Zhao explained. They've been in position for decades, some for over a century. They're powered by reactors that can run for millennia. They're programmed with one simple command. If Earth falls, if our civilization is destroyed, they activate. And they don't stop until every major world of every empire that attacked us is reduced to radioactive debris. "You're bluffing," Kresh transmitted, his voice shaking. "You wouldn't destroy entire civilizations." "We wouldn't want to," Zhao agreed. "But we will if forced." "This is what you need to understand about humanity, Admiral. We prepare for the worst-case scenario. We hope for peace but plan for total war. And when we plan for total war, we don't plan to lose. We plan for mutual destruction on a scale that makes victory meaningless." The general leaned forward. "If you destroy Earth, your homeworlds die too. If you attack our colonies, we strike your industrial centers. If you target our people, we target yours. We built a galaxy-wide dead man's switch, Admiral. Not because we're evil or because we want to kill billions of innocent people, but because it's the only way to guarantee our survival against empires that see war as a tool for expansion." Kresh looked at the star maps again. There were hundreds of markers, maybe thousands. The humans had seeded weapons throughout galactic space and no one had noticed. They had been invisible, patient, and thorough. "Now I'll prove we're not bluffing," Zhao said. "Watch your sensors." One of the red markers on the holographic display began flashing. It was near an uninhabited Vakari mining outpost on the edge of Dominion space. Kresh's sensors showed the platform activating, energy signatures spiking. A beam of pure coherent energy lanced out from the platform, traveling at light speed. It struck the mining outpost. The base didn't explode. It simply ceased to exist, vaporized so completely that not even debris remained. The beam continued on, hitting the moon the outpost had been mining, boring through hundreds of kilometers of rock in seconds. "That was one platform," Zhao said calmly. "One weapon. We have thousands of them. Some target military installations. Others target population centers. Some are designed to cause extinction-level events on inhabited worlds. We built them all, positioned them all, and armed them all with one purpose, ensuring that if humanity dies, we don't die alone." Kresh felt sick. The demonstration had been clear. These weren't precision weapons meant for military targets. These were planet killers, civilization enders, and the humans had them everywhere. "Here are our terms," General Zhao stated. "All surviving ships will leave human space immediately. You will establish a permanent exclusion zone around our territory. No ship, probe, or drone crosses the boundary. No attempts at communication. No trade missions. No diplomacy. You stay on your side, we stay on ours. If you agree and honor these terms, the weapons platforms remain dormant. We'll continue monitoring your empires, but we won't interfere with your affairs. We'll remain isolated just as we have been for centuries. But if you cross into human space again, if you attack our ships or colonies, if you even attempt to locate and disarm our platforms, they all activate. Every single one. And your civilizations end." The general's expression softened slightly. "We don't want to kill billions of people, Admiral. We don't want this eternal standoff. But we learned from watching your empires that the only thing that prevents strong powers from crushing weaker ones is the fear of mutual destruction. So we gave you that fear. We gave you a reason to leave us alone that has nothing to do with morality or ethics and everything to do with simple survival. You have 1 hour to evacuate human space," Zhao concluded. "After that, any vessel remaining in our territory will be destroyed and we'll consider it an act of renewed aggression. Choose wisely." The transmission ended. Kresh sat in silence, his mind racing. He looked at his surviving officers, seeing the same shock and fear on their faces. They had come here to conquer a hidden species. Instead, they had discovered that the hidden species had been holding a gun to the galaxy's head for centuries. "Admiral, orders?" his second officer asked quietly. "We leave," Kresh said. "Signal all surviving ships. Retreat immediately. Maximum speed. What about the crews we lost? The ships that were disabled?" Kresh thought about the thousands of Vakari, Kryn, and Zelian crew members floating in damaged ships or taken prisoner. The humans will return them eventually. Or they won't. Either way, we can't save them now. We need survivors to carry this message back home. The fleet began its retreat, limping toward the boundary of human space. The humans didn't attack again. They simply watched, their weapons tracking every ship until it crossed back into normal space. Once the gravitational anomalies cleared, the fleet jumped to faster-than-light speeds, running from the trap they had stumbled into. Kresh spent the journey writing his report. He included everything he had seen. Every weapon demonstrated every word General Zhao had spoken. He recommended immediate compliance with human terms and the establishment of the permanent exclusion zone. He also recommended against any attempt to locate or disarm the human weapons platforms. After seeing what just one could do, he believed the humans when they said attacking the platforms would trigger them all. When the fleet finally reached Dominion space, they found their homeworld in chaos. The civilian government had detected the weapons platforms the moment the humans revealed them. Scientists confirmed they were real, functional, and beyond current technology to safely disarm. The population was terrified. Kresh delivered his report to the High Council. This time they listened. The evidence was undeniable. The humans weren't bluffing. They had prepared for total war and built the weapons to wage it. Within a week, the Vakari Dominion, Kryn Empire, and Zellian Confederation jointly announced the creation of an exclusion zone around human space. No vessel would cross the boundary. No contact would be attempted. The region would be marked as forbidden territory, and violating the exclusion zone would be treated as a capital crime. Commander Zirek watched the announcement from his home. He felt a mix of emotions: relief that his people had survived, sadness for the thousands who had died, and a strange respect for the humans. They had done what seemed impossible. They had forced the entire galaxy to leave them alone, not through diplomacy or appeals to morality, but through the credible threat of mutual destruction. It wasn't a victory anyone wanted to celebrate. The galaxy now lived under the shadow of human weapons that could end civilizations. But it was peace of a sort. A peace enforced by fear, but peace nonetheless. In human space, General Zhao watched the departing fleet on his displays. When the last ship crossed the boundary, he allowed himself a moment of relief. The gamble had worked. Humanity had revealed enough strength to deter future aggression, while keeping their most powerful weapons secret. The platforms were real, but Earth's defensive capability went far beyond even what they had shown. "General, message from the civilian government," an aide said. "They want to know if we're really willing to trigger the platforms if attacked." Zhao considered the question. Would he? Would humanity really destroy billions of innocent lives in revenge for their own destruction? He hoped they would never have to find out. The whole point of the deterrent was that it would never be used. "Tell them the galaxy doesn't need to know the answer to that question," Zhao replied. "As long as they believe we're willing to do it, they'll stay away. That's all that matters." He looked up at the stars visible through the command center's windows. Somewhere out there, civilizations were deciding whether to honor the exclusion zone or test humanity's resolve. Zhao suspected they would honor it, at least for a generation or two. Fear was a powerful motivator. Humanity remained isolated, hidden behind their defensive perimeter, watching the galaxy from the shadows. They had bought themselves time, maybe centuries of peace. Time to grow stronger, to develop new technologies, to prepare for whatever came next. The galaxy had learned a hard lesson. Some species chose isolation not because they were weak, but because they were too dangerous to let loose. And the humans, it turned out, were the most dangerous species of all, not because they were the strongest or the most advanced, but because they were willing to prepare for the absolute worst and follow through with their threats. No ship would cross into human space again. The graveyard was closed, and humanity would make sure it stayed that way. John Mercer straightened his tie as he waited outside the massive doors to the Galactic Council chambers. After 20 years as a diplomat, this was the moment his career had led to. First contact had happened just 6 months ago when the alien ship landed in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Now John stood as humanity's chosen representative to plea for Earth's acceptance into the galactic community. "They're ready for you now," said a tall, blue-skinned alien with 4 arms. John nodded and took a deep breath. He walked through the doors into a vast circular room. Hundreds of different alien species sat in rising tiers around a central platform. Some looked almost human. Others were so strange that John's mind struggled to make sense of their forms. He stepped onto the platform, which rose up so everyone could see him. The light was bright, and John felt very small. "I present to you John, Mercer of Earth," announced a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "He speaks for the human species in their request to join the Galactic Council." John cleared his throat. "Thank you for this honor. Humanity is young compared to many of your civilizations, but we are eager to learn and contribute. We have much to offer: our art, our science, our unique perspective. We ask only for the chance to grow alongside you as members of this great council." A tall, gray-skinned alien with a head that split into 3 parts stood up, This was Ambassador Zillar of the Vexari, one of the oldest species in the galaxy. "We have studied your history, human," Zillar said. His voice was cold. "In just the last 100 years, you have fought 2 world wars. You have split the atom and immediately used it as a weapon. You built computers and then used them to create better ways to kill each other." John had prepared for this. "Yes, our past has darkness, but we have learned from it. We haven't had a global conflict in over a century. We've united our planet under shared goals of peace and progress." Another alien, covered in short green fur, spoke up. "Yet your military spending remains higher than your spending on medicine or education. You prepare for war even in times of peace. That's not fair," John argued. We have also noted," interrupted a floating cloud of gas contained in a transparent suit, "that your technological progress is concerning. You advanced from primitive flight to space travel in less than 70 years. Most species take 300 years to make such progress." John felt sweat forming on his forehead. This wasn't going as planned. "Our quick advancement shows our potential. Think of what we could accomplish with your guidance." The council members began talking among themselves. John couldn't understand most of what they said, as his translator only worked for the main speakers. After what felt like an hour, the Vexari representative spoke again. "The council has concerns. Humanity is unpredictable, violent, and advances too quickly. We have seen species like yours before. They spread too fast, consume too much, and eventually threaten the balance. That's not who we are," John insisted. "Please, give us a chance to prove ourselves. We will now vote," announced the voice from everywhere. John watched in horror as one by one, lights turned red across the chamber. Only a small section of green lights showed any support for Earth. The Vexari stood again. "The council has decided. Humanity is deemed too dangerous for full integration at this time. You are hereby quarantined to your solar system. You will not be permitted to develop faster than light travel. You will not be permitted to establish colonies beyond your system. Any violation of these terms will result in immediate sanction." John felt like he'd been punched in the stomach. "For how long?" "Until you prove yourselves worthy. Perhaps in 1,000 years we will reconsider." 1,000 years? John couldn't believe what he was hearing. "You're condemning us to isolation for a millennium based on a history we've already moved beyond?" "The decision is final," said the Vexari. "You will be escorted back to your ship and returned to Earth. Council monitors will be placed at the edges of your solar system to ensure compliance." John wanted to argue more, but 2 guards appeared at his sides. He had no choice but to leave. 3 days later, John's ship landed back on Earth. News of the Council's decision had already reached home through the communication channels they'd established. The world was in chaos at a special United Nations meeting in New York. John delivered his report to a room full of grim-faced world leaders. "They fear us," he concluded, "not for what we've done, but for what they think we might become." The Secretary General shook her head. "So we're prisoners in our own solar system. What about the technology they promised to share?" asked the President of the African Union. "Withdrawn," John said. "They'll only give us basic medical knowledge. Nothing that might help us advance our space capabilities." In the back of the room, a young woman named Susan Clark listened carefully. As one of Earth's top engineers, she had been invited to hear the report firsthand. While the politicians argued, Susan's mind was already working on a problem. Later that night in her lab at MIT, Susan stared at equations on her computer screen. Her assistant, Gary Miller, brought her a cup of coffee. "You should get some sleep," he said. Susan shook her head. "The aliens think it will take us centuries to develop FTL travel on our own, but they don't understand how humans work. When someone tells us we can't do something, it just makes us try harder." Gary looked at her screen. "Is that what I think it is?" "It's the start of it," Susan said. "They showed us just enough of their tech to give me ideas. They think they're containing us, but they've actually given me the key." 1 month later, Susan stood in a secret underground facility with John and several world leaders. They looked through a thick glass window at a small metal device glowing with blue energy. "It works?" asked the U.S. president. "It's just a prototype," Susan said. "But yes, the math checks out. We can build engines that will take us not just beyond our solar system but to the stars, and the Council will never see it coming." John looked at the device, then at the world leaders. "So what do we do? If we break their quarantine, they might destroy us." The room was quiet for a long moment. Then the Chinese premier spoke. "Throughout history, when faced with walls, humanity has done one of two things. We either accept the boundaries set for us, or we break through them." Finished. The U.S. president. The vote was unanimous. Earth would not accept its prison. In secret labs around the world, work began on a fleet of ships that would carry humanity to the stars, whether the Galactic Council approved or not. John looked out the window at the night sky. Somewhere up there, alien eyes were watching, thinking. They had humanity safely caged. They were about to learn a painful lesson about the human spirit. "They should have killed us when they had the chance," he whispered to himself. 5 years passed since the Galactic Council banished humanity to its solar system. 5 years of secret work, hidden factories on Mars and the Moon, and quiet preparation. Alex Winters stood on the bridge of the colony ship Defiance, running his hand along the smooth metal of the captain's chair. At 42, the former Navy SEAL had never expected to command a spaceship, let alone one designed to escape alien detection. "Final systems check complete, Captain," said Kyle Harper, the ship's engineer. Kyle's fingers danced across 3 screens at once. At just 28, he was the best systems expert Earth had to offer. "All crew accounted for," reported Patricia Mendez, looking up from her station. Patricia was a xenobiologist, one of the few humans who had actually studied alien life forms before the Council cut off access. "All 300 colonists are in cryosleep," Alex nodded. "And the other ships?" "The Liberty, Independence, and New Horizon are all reporting ready status," said his communications officer. Alex took a deep breath. This mission had been planned for years. 4 ships would attempt to break through the Council blockade and scatter in different directions. They carried humanity's best and brightest, along with seeds, embryos, and the knowledge needed to start. "Over. Message from Earth Command," said the communications officer. "They say Council patrols are shifting. We have a small window in Sector 7. It's now or never." Alex sat in his chair. "Tell all ships, launch in 60 seconds. Set course for Sector 7. Then prepare for immediate jump to FTL once we clear the blockade." Across the solar system, hidden launchers powered up. The ships rose silently, their hulls coated with materials that absorbed scanning waves than reflecting them back. For 20 minutes, all seemed to go as planned. The ships accelerated toward the edge of the solar system, aiming for a gap between patrol routes. Then alarms blared across the bridge. "Council ships detected," Kyle shouted. They weren't supposed to be here. On the main screen, 3 alien vessels appeared, moving to intercept. They were sleek and predatory, clearly warships. "They've spotted us," Patricia said, her voice tight. "They're charging weapons." Alex gripped the arms of his chair. "All ships, evasive maneuvers. Prepare to jump as soon as you're clear." The Defiance shuddered as engines pushed to maximum. The ship was big and not built for agility. "They're hailing us," said the communications officer. Alex nodded. "Put them through." A Vexari face appeared on screen, its 3-part head moving in a way that humans found disturbing. "Human vessels, you are in violation of Council quarantine. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded." Alex stood. "This is Captain Alex Winters. We are peaceful colonists seeking only to exercise our right to travel. We mean no harm to the Council." "Your rights were limited by Council decree," the Vexari said. "This is your final warning. Stop your engines or we will fire." Alex cut the transmission. "All ships execute emergency pattern Delta. Jump as soon as you can." The 4 human ships suddenly split apart, each heading in a different direction. The Council vessels hesitated, then divided to pursue. "2 on our tail," Kyle reported. "They're faster than us." The Defiance rocked as energy weapons struck its shields. Shields at 60%, Patricia called out. We can't take much more. Alex, watch the distance counter. They needed to be clear of the solar system's gravitational influence before they could jump to FTL. Divert power from non-essential systems to the engines, he ordered, and prepare a little surprise for our friends. Kyle grinned and typed rapidly. Moments later, the Defiance released a cloud of small drones. What are those? Patricia asked. Susan Clark's other invention, Alex said. They create false engine signatures, should confuse their targeting systems. The plan worked, briefly. The Council ships wasted precious shots on the drones. But soon they adjusted and resumed their attack on the Defiance. Shields at 30%, Patricia reported. Hull breach on Deck 3, emergency systems responding. Distance to jump. Point? Alex asked. 20 seconds, Kyle said. The ship shook violently. Sparks flew from a nearby console. Shields failing, Patricia shouted. 10 seconds to jump point, Kyle counted down. Alex watched as the Council ships closed in, weapons charging for another volley. 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Jump. The stars stretched into lines, then vanished. The Defiance lurched forward as if pulled by an invisible hand, and suddenly they were traveling faster than light. Alex let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Damage report. Hull breaches on decks 3 and 5, contained by emergency shields, Patricia said. 12 injured, no fatalities, main power at 70%. The other ships? Alex asked. The communications officer worked his console. Liberty and Independence made the jump. No signal from New Horizon. A heavy silence fell over the bridge. New Horizon carried over 300 people. Keep trying to contact them, Alex said quietly. They might have jumped on a different vector. Hours passed. The Defiance continued at FTL speed, heading toward a star system they had selected years ago based on old astronomical data. There was still no word from the New Horizon. 2 days later, as the crew settled into their journey, the sensors detected something unusual. Captain, I'm picking up a ship, Kyle said. It's not one of ours, and it's not Council design either. Alex frowned. Hostile? Not yet. They're keeping pace with us in FTL, about half a light minute away. I didn't think that was possible. Drop us out of FTL, Alex ordered. Let's see what they do. The Defiance returned to normal space near a small rocky planet. The mysterious ship followed, visible now as a cluster of interconnected spheres. They're hailing us, the communications officer said, sounding surprised. Alex straightened his uniform. On screen, the image that appeared showed a being unlike any they had seen before. It had a sleek, almost feline body covered in short white fur, with large eyes set in a triangular face. Greetings, humans, the alien said in perfect English. I am Thelen of the Nirathi. We have been watching your escape with great interest. Alex tensed. How do you know our language? We have been monitoring Council communications. We know they banished you, as they once banished us. Patricia stepped forward. Your exiles, too? Thelen nodded, a surprisingly human gesture. For 3 generations we have wandered beyond Council space. They feared our ability to adapt their technology, just as they fear you. Alex and Patricia exchanged looks. What do you want from us? Alex asked. To offer friendship, Thelen said. There are others like us, species pushed aside by the Council's fear. Together we might find strength where they expected us to find only isolation. Patricia leaned close to Alex. This could be exactly what we need. Their knowledge of space beyond Council territory could be invaluable. Alex considered this, then nodded. Thelen of the Nirathi, we would be honored to learn from you. Perhaps together we can build something new out here, something better than what the Council offers. Thelen's mouth curved in what might have been a smile. Then let us begin. As the human and Nirathi ships moved into orbit around the small planet, Alex looked out at the stars. They had escaped, but this was just the beginning. Somewhere out there, other human ships were finding their own paths. Somewhere, humanity was taking its first real steps into the galaxy. The exile had begun, but so had humanity's real journey. 20 years had passed since the human ships escaped Earth. What began as 4 desperate vessels fleeing the Council had grown into something much greater. Olivia Carter stood at the window of her office, looking out over the sprawling city of Nova Terra. As governor of the largest human settlement, she had watched it grow from a collection of prefab shelters to a thriving metropolis of 50,000 people, humans and aliens living side by side. She smiled as she watched a group of Nirathi children playing with human kids in the Central Park. Their white fur stood out against the green grass as they chased each other around trees that had been carefully grown from earth seeds. "Governor, the council is waiting," said her assistant from the doorway. Olivia nodded and turned away from the window. At 48, she had spent half her life on this planet. She'd arrived as a young agricultural specialist and risen to leadership through hard work and a talent for bringing people together. The meeting room was filled with representatives from the various colonies that made up what they now called the Fringe, the vast region beyond council space. Some attended in person while others appeared as holograms, their images flickering slightly with the delay of interstellar communication. "The council has found another of our settlements," Olivia announced without preamble. A murmur ran through the room. "Harmony Colony. They sent 3 warships. How bad?" asked the representative from New Hope, a colony established by the Liberty during the original escape. Olivia brought up a video on the main screen. It showed a small settlement under attack, energy weapons raining down from orbit. Then, surprisingly, the colonists responded with their own weapons, mining lasers repurposed as defense systems. "This was taken 2 weeks ago," Olivia said. "Frank Dawson, the colony leader, managed to send this before communications were cut off." The room watched as the colonists mounted an unexpectedly strong defense. The council ships weren't prepared for resistance. One of them took heavy damage and withdrew from orbit. "They fought back?" someone asked in disbelief. "And effectively," Olivia confirmed. "The mining equipment they use on Harmony was modified with Karathi technology." She nodded toward a tall, insectoid alien sitting at the table. "The Karathi had joined the Fringe Alliance 5 years ago after their own conflict with the Council." "Did they survive?" asked another representative. Olivia nodded. "We received a message yesterday. The Council ships retreated after the colonists damaged one of them. They didn't expect humans to have weapons that could harm their ships." "They'll be back," said the Nirathi ambassador Kelvin. He was Thelan's son, born after the first contact with humans. He had taken a human name, as many Nirathi now did. "And with more ships." "Exactly," Olivia said, "which is why I've called this meeting. For 20 years we've been building our colonies, developing our technology, and making new allies. We've created something wonderful here in the Fringe, a place where different species work together instead of fearing each other. But the Council won't let us live in peace forever." She looked around the room. "We need to formalize our alliance. Not just humans and Nirathi, but all the species that have joined us in the Fringe. We need a unified defense system, shared technology, and a governing structure." The silicon-based Lumen representative glowed more brightly, their way of showing agreement. "The Council fears what it cannot control. Alone, each of our species was vulnerable. Together, we may have the strength to defend our freedom." Discussion broke out across the room. Some argued against provoking the Council, while others insisted that a show of strength was the only language the Council would understand. "We're not looking for war," Olivia said firmly, "but we need to be prepared to defend ourselves. The attack on Harmony Colony proves the Council still sees us as a threat to be eliminated." Hours later, after much debate, a vote was called. The result was nearly unanimous. "Then it's decided," Olivia announced. "From this day forward, our scattered colonies and peoples will be united as the Fringe Alliance. Our first priority will be a shared defense network, followed by improved communication systems between all our worlds." As the meeting concluded, Olivia returned to her office. Her assistant handed her a message that had just arrived. "It's from Earth," he said. Olivia's heart beat faster. Contact with Earth was rare and dangerous. The Council monitored the solar system closely. The message was brief. The door is closing. More ships coming soon. This may be the last chance. She understood immediately. Despite the quarantine, Earth had never stopped building ships. Some had escaped over the years, finding their way to the fringe colonies. But the message suggested the Council was tightening its grip. Olivia called an emergency meeting with her closest advisors. They needed to prepare for an influx of refugees from Earth, possibly the last to escape. 3 months later, a fleet of 30 ships appeared at the edge of the Nova Terra system. They were battered, some barely functioning, but they had made. 7,000 humans from Earth had escaped just before the Council closed the net completely. Among the refugees was an old woman with white hair and sharp eyes. Olivia recognized her immediately from the historical records. "Dr. Susan Clark," she said, extending her hand. "Your FTL drive design is what made all of this possible." Susan looked around the welcoming area, taking in the sight of humans working alongside various alien species. "When I designed that drive, I hoped we'd find a new home. I never imagined we'd build a new society." "We've done more than that," Olivia said proudly. "We've created something the Council never could, a true alliance of different species working as equals." Later that week, representatives from all 27 Fringe Alliance worlds gathered for a historic ceremony. On a stage built in Nova Terra's central plaza, Olivia stood with leaders from the Nirathi, Karathi, Lumen, and 3 other species that had joined their alliance. "Today we declare that the Fringe Alliance is no longer just a mutual defense pact," Olivia announced to the cheering crowd. "Today, we become the Stellar Commonwealth, a union of free peoples who believe that diversity is strength, that innovation should be celebrated, not feared, and that every species has the right to forge its own destiny." As the new Commonwealth flag was raised, a field of stars surrounding a 7-pointed emblem representing the founding species, Olivia thought about how far they had come. Banished and abandoned, humanity had not only survived but thrived, and in doing so, they had created something entirely new in the galaxy. The exile that was meant to be their end had become just the beginning. 50 years had passed since humanity's banishment from the Galactic Council. The Stellar Commonwealth now spanned over 100 worlds, with humans and 6 other species living and working together in harmony. Lucy Reeves wiped sweat from her forehead as she carefully brushed dirt from a stone tablet. The air in the ruins was hot and dusty, but she barely noticed. At 32, Lucy was one of the Commonwealth's most respected archaeologists, specializing in ancient civilizations. "Found something interesting?" asked Miko, her Lumen assistant. The silicon-based alien glowed softly in the dim light, providing natural illumination that was perfect for their work. "Very," Lucy said, her eyes fixed on the symbols etched into the stone. "This tablet mentions the architects again, and look at this image." She pointed to a carving that showed tall, slender beings surrounded by various other species, all smaller. "The architects were real," she whispered. "Not just legends." For the past 3 years, Lucy had been exploring ruins on distant worlds, following clues about a mysterious species called the Architects. According to fragments they had found, this species had ruled the galaxy long before the current council formed. "The dates match our other findings," Lucy said, as she scanned the tablet with her device. "The Architects vanished about 15,000 years ago, right before the rise of the Vexari and the other council species." Miko's glow pulsed with excitement. "What happened to them?" Lucy carefully moved her scanner down the tablet. "According to this, there was a rebellion. The Architects tried to restrict the development of younger species, especially their expansion into space. The younger species united against them." Her scanner beeped as it finished translating. Lucy read the results and gasped. "Miko, this says, the Vexari led the rebellion against the Architects. Then after the Architects fell, the Vexari and their allies formed the first version of the Council. But the Council does exactly what the Architects did," Miko said, his light dimming in confusion. "They restrict development and expansion." Lucy nodded. They became what they once fought against, and I bet they've been hiding this history all along. Back at the Commonwealth Central University on Nova Terra, Lucy presented her findings to a packed auditorium. Representatives from all Commonwealth species were present, along with several members of the governing council. "The evidence is clear," Lucy said, showing images of ruins from 7 different worlds. "The architects were an advanced species that ruled the galaxy 15,000 years ago. They believed younger species needed guidance and control, so they created strict rules about technology and expansion." She changed the display to show the translation of the tablet she had found. The Vexari, who were relatively young at the time, led a rebellion against the architects. Along with several other species, they overthrew the architects and established their own rule. An older man in the front row raised his hand. "Dr. Reeves, are you suggesting the council is knowingly repeating history?" Lucy recognized him as Dr. Peter Walsh, one of the original colonists who had escaped Earth on the Defiance. "I believe they've deliberately suppressed this history," Lucy answered. "The council claims their restrictions are for the good of all species. But these ruins tell a different story. The architects made the same claim, and the Vexari fought for their freedom. Now the Vexari have become the new architects." The room buzzed with conversation. Lucy continued, showing more evidence from various sites. "Most importantly, these findings suggest the architects didn't just disappear. They were defeated by younger, more adaptable species working together, species that refused to accept limitations on their potential." After her presentation, Lucy was approached by Nathan Ford, the current Commonwealth president. "Dr. Reeves, your discoveries could change everything," he said. "If the council has been hiding this history, it might explain why they're so afraid of us." "Not just us," Lucy replied. "Any species that shows too much independence or develops too quickly." Nathan nodded thoughtfully. "We've received some interesting communications recently. There's growing unrest within the council. Several member species have been questioning the old policies, especially after seeing the Commonwealth's success." "The council is fracturing?" Lucy asked in surprise. "We've been contacted by a moderate council member named Zeth of the Tellarites. He wants to arrange a secret meeting. Your findings could be vital for that discussion." 2 weeks later, Lucy found herself aboard a diplomatic vessel heading toward neutral space. The Commonwealth had agreed to meet with representatives from several council species who were questioning the traditional policies. The meeting took place on an abandoned space station in a system far from both Commonwealth and council space. Lucy felt nervous as she walked into the conference room alongside President Nathan and other Commonwealth officials. Across the table sat 5 aliens representing different council species. At their center was Zeth, a tall Tellarite with golden scales and 4 arms. Unlike the stern Vexari, the Tellarites were known for their curiosity and adaptability. "Thank you for coming," Zeth said. "What we're doing would be considered treason by the Vexari-led council majority, but many of us believe the old ways are failing." Nathan nodded. "We appreciate your courage. We've brought someone who has information you might find interesting." Lucy stepped forward and presented her findings about the architects. As she spoke, she watched the council members' reactions. Some seemed shocked, others nodded as if confirming suspicions they already had. "The Vexari have kept this from us," said one alien with feathered wings. "All this time they've preached about stability and control, while hiding their own revolutionary past." "They fear another rebellion," Zeth said. "That's why they've been so harsh with species like humans, who remind them of themselves from long ago." The discussion continued for hours. Lucy realized that the Commonwealth had allies they never knew existed within the council itself. "The council is changing," Zeth told them as the meeting concluded. "The success of your Commonwealth has not gone unnoticed. Many younger council species ask why we cannot achieve similar cooperation without giving up our independence." Nathan looked at the assembled aliens. "Perhaps it's time for both our civilizations to learn from history instead of repeating it." As Lucy walked back to their ship, she felt a weight lift from her shoulders. For 50 years, humans had believed they were alone against a united council. Now they knew the truth was more complicated. The architects had fallen when they tried to control the natural development of younger species. The Vexari-led council was now facing the same challenge. And humanity, once banished and left to die, had inadvertently created a model for a different kind of galactic society. History doesn't repeat, Lucy murmured to herself, as their ship prepared to jump back to Commonwealth space. But sometimes it rhymes. 100 years had passed since humanity's banishment. What began as a desperate escape from imprisonment had grown into the Stellar Commonwealth, a thriving alliance of species that spanned nearly 1,000 worlds. William Boyd stood on the bridge of the flagship Guardian, looking out at the vast fleet assembled before him. At 45, William had risen to become Admiral of the Commonwealth Navy. His great-grandfather had been one of the original escapees on the Defiance, and William had grown up hearing stories of Earth, a planet he had never seen. Fleet status? William asked his executive officer. All ships report ready, Admiral, she replied. 200 Commonwealth vessels plus 58 from our Council allies. William nodded. The last 30 years had seen dramatic changes in the galaxy. The Council had split into two factions, the traditionalists led by the Vexari, and the reformers who sought alliance with the Commonwealth. Civil war had erupted as more species left the Council to join the Commonwealth or declare independence. Message. From President Chen, the communications officer announced. The Vexari fleet has been detected leaving Council space. Long-range scans confirm they're heading for Earth. William's jaw tightened. Intelligence reports had warned this might happen. The Vexari, losing their grip on the Council, had decided to make an example of humanity's homeworld, to show what happened to those who defied them. Set course for the Sol system, William ordered. Maximum speed. Alert all ships to prepare for combat upon arrival. The Commonwealth fleet jumped to FTL, racing to reach Earth before the Vexari. William spent the journey studying tactical displays and coordinating with their Council allies. The Vexari don't know about our alliance with the Council reformers, said Captain Alara, a Tellarite officer serving as liaison. They'll be expecting only Commonwealth resistance. Let's hope that gives us the edge we need, William replied. Our latest intelligence suggests they've assembled nearly 300 ships. 3 days later, the Commonwealth fleet arrived. At the edge of the Sol system, the Vexari had beaten them by hours and were already approaching Earth. Open a channel to all Commonwealth and Allied ships, William said, standing tall in the center of the bridge. This is Admiral Boyd. 100 years ago, humanity was banished from the galactic community, told we were too dangerous to join the stars. Today we return to defend our homeworld, not just as humans, but as members of the greatest alliance the galaxy has ever known. The Commonwealth stands for freedom, cooperation, and progress, everything the Vexari fear. Today we show them that their fear was justified, not because we seek destruction, but because we represent a better way forward. All ships, battle formation Delta, engage the enemy. The Commonwealth fleet surged forward, spreading into a three-dimensional attack formation that would have been impossible for a single species to coordinate. Ships designed by different species, crewed by mixed teams, moved with perfect synchronization. The Vexari fleet, already in orbit around Earth, turned to meet them. The space between the fleets lit up with energy weapons and missile trails. They're targeting our command ships, reported the tactical officer as the Guardian shook from a near miss. As expected, William said calmly. Implement Hydra protocol. Across the Commonwealth fleet, command functions automatically redistributed. Instead of disabling the fleet by targeting a few key vessels, the Vexari found themselves facing an opponent that adapted with each loss. The battle raged for hours. Commonwealth ships used technologies that had evolved differently from Council. Standards, weapons, and defenses the Vexari weren't prepared for. But the Vexari had numbers and the advantage of position around Earth. Admiral, we're taking heavy losses in Sector 4, reported the tactical officer. The Vexari have broken through our line. William studied the display, then made a decision. Direct the Lumen vessels to Sector 4. Their phase shift technology should surprise the Vexari, and prepare a special package for delivery. An hour later, with both fleets badly damaged, William executed his final plan. A small group of fast, stealthy ships broke away from the main battle, each towing a captured asteroid. Gravity manipulators at full power, William ordered. Bring those rocks in fast and hot. The Commonwealth had developed gravity technology far beyond what the Council possessed. Now they used it to turn simple space rocks into devastating weapons, accelerating them toward the heart of the Vexari formation. The Vexari, their sensors focused on energy weapons and conventional threats, didn't detect the asteroids until too late. Their tight formation, once an advantage, became a liability as the massive rocks tore through their fleet, destroying dozens of ships and disrupting their coordination. Now, William commanded. All ships, full advance. The Commonwealth fleet, joined by their Council allies, pushed forward. The Vexari, their formation broken and their flagship destroyed, began to retreat. 3 hours later, the last Vexari ship jumped away from the Sol system. The battle was over. Earth was safe. William looked out at the blue planet below. His ancestors' home. Millions of lights shone on its night side, evidence that humanity had not only survived under quarantine, but had continued to develop. Open communications with Earth, he said softly. A woman's face appeared on screen, her expression a mixture of awe and gratitude. This is President Rivera of the Earth Union. On behalf of all humanity, thank you for coming to our defense. We never expected to see our children return from the stars. William smiled. We never forgot where we came from, Madam President. And now, if you're willing, we'd like to bring Earth into the Commonwealth. 1 month later, representatives from all Commonwealth worlds and Council reformer species gathered in Geneva, Earth's traditional center for international diplomacy. For the first time in a century, humans who had left, and those who had stayed, came together. In a grand ceremony broadcast across 1,000 worlds, Earth officially joined the stellar Commonwealth. The quarantine was lifted. Ships from across the galaxy landed on Earth, bringing visitors from dozens of species that humans had once feared they would never meet. William stood at the window of the historic building where the new galactic charter was being drafted. Below, in the streets of Geneva, humans mingled with aliens of all descriptions, former enemies now allies, strangers now friends. An elderly Tellarite approached him. Admiral Boyd, I am Zeth. I believe you know of me. William nodded. Zeth had been the first council member to reach out to the Commonwealth decades ago. The Vexari made the same mistake the architects made long ago, Zeth said. They believed. Control brings stability, but your Commonwealth has proven that freedom and cooperation create something stronger than any empire built on fear. William watched as a group of children, human, Nairathi, Tellarite, and others, played together in a nearby park. We didn't set out to build an empire, William said. We just wanted to survive. But in finding our own path, we created something better than what we left behind. Zeth nodded. From exiles to exemplars, the Council banished humanity, thinking to contain you. Instead, they released you to reshape the galaxy. As the sun set over Geneva, William thought of all the generations that had led to this moment, from John Mercer, who first faced the Council, to Susan Clark, who gave humanity the stars, to Lucy Reeves, who uncovered the truth of history. 100 years of struggle had led to this new beginning. The banishment that was meant to be humanity's end had become the galaxy's salvation.